How you doing? I'm Callan and this is Slapped Ham. Today we're talking about some really weird things found in backyards. From woolly mammoth bones to $10 million worth of gold coins. Join us as we take a look at the 10 strangest things discovered in backyards.
The Los Angeles Times ran a story in February 1978 about two children who found a Dino 264 GTS Ferrari in their backyard. According to the story, the vehicle was in perfect condition except for a small hole over the taillight. In 2012, Mike Spinelli, a writer for the website Jalopnik, wanted to learn more about the buried Ferrari. He contacted Dennis Carroll, one of the detectives who worked on the case in '78. According to Carroll, the police got a tip from a snitch about the car. They wanted to cover the snitch's identity, so they faked the story about the boys finding the car. It was alleged that the owner of the vehicle hired a few men to stage a theft so he could collect the insurance money. Since the police couldn't prove that the man was involved, they couldn't arrest him. When the vehicle was lifted out of the ground, it was a mess. A mechanic brought the car and put a lot of work into it. He's still driving it around today. In 2011, a man named Vincent Marcello was planning to put a swimming pool in the backyard of his home in the French Quarter of New Orleans. When he started digging in the yard, he found a lot more than just dirt and rocks. Under the ground, there was an 18th century graveyard. There were 13 graves in all, each with 13 caskets that contained human remains. According to Mr. Marcello, he knew that his home had historic value. However, he didn't realize how much historic value it actually had. Of all the strange things found in backyards, this is by far the creepiest. In July 2010, a family from Iowa made an amazing discovery while walking through their backyard. The man, who was only identified as John, stated that he was walking near a creek behind his Oskaloosa, Ohio home with his two sons. They saw something that they thought was a bowling ball at the shallow end of the creek. When they pulled it out, they discovered it wasn't a bowling ball at all, it was actually a bone. After they found the bone, they brought it to Marlon Ingalls from the Iowa State Archaeologist's Office. According to Mr. Ingalls, the bone appeared to be 12,000 years old. After further excavation of the creek, they found several smaller bones, leading Mr. Ingalls to believe that the mammoth died in the spot where the bones were found. The bones were in great condition, and Mr. Ingalls stated the find was incredibly exciting. A couple from Sierra Nevada, California, who chose not to be identified, took their dog for a walk around their property in 2013. While they were walking, they noticed the top of an old canister that had been buried in the ground. When they went into the house, they opened the canister. Inside, they found several gold coins from the 1890s. Right after seeing what was in the canister, they went back out into the yard to where they found the first one and found 7 more just like it. In total, there were 1,427 gold coins buried in their yard. The face value of the coins was around $27,980. The couple took the coins to a professional to be restored and valued. It turned out the coins were worth a whopping $10 million. In August 2014, a man from Calgary, Canada, who was asked not to be identified, was walking between his garage and his fence when he found a pillowcase containing a loaded hunting rifle and a cell phone. He told the police that he rarely ever walked in that section of his yard. The police took custody of the rifle and the phone. After a thorough investigation, the police couldn't determine the owner of the gun and the phone, or how it even got to the Calgary man's yard. In 2007, a man who was only identified as Andreas K. from Wiener Neustadt, Vienna, was in his backyard turning the dirt. While he was digging, he found an old bag. Inside were 200 rings, gold-plated silver plates, ornate belt buckles, and other pieces encrusted with pearls and other stones. When he first found the treasure, he packed it up in a box in his basement. 2 years later, while packing to sell his home, he came across the box which he had completely forgotten about. By then, the soil had dried and he got a better look at the treasure. It was at this time that he took the treasure to Austria's Federal Office of Memorials. There it was discovered that the treasure was about 650 years old. The president of the memorial's office, Barbara Neubauer, called the find sensational. She also stated that fairy tales still exist. It's unknown how much the treasure is actually worth. In 2014, a 14-year-old boy named Ari Erturk was digging in a trout pond in the backyard of his father's Salt Lake City, Utah home. While digging, he found the skeletal remains of a human. The boy and his father immediately called the police. The remains were picked up and sent to the state medical examiner's office for testing. It turned out that the remains were not from a person who had died recently. With the help of experts from the Utah Department of Heritage and Arts, they discovered that the remains were from a Native American who died over 1,000 years ago. After the remains were examined by a forensic anthropologist, the report was sent to the State Division of Indian Affairs. If it is determined that the remains are linked to any current tribes, the tribe can claim the remains. If a tribe does take possession, they would perform interment rites. In 2008, a 9-year-old boy was playing outside of his Cambridgeshire, UK home when he ran into his house to tell his mother that there was a cheetah in the backyard. His mother didn't believe him. She told the local officials that she believed it was just a large cat that her son saw. When she looked out the window, she realised that her son was telling the truth. After making a few calls, the police discovered that the cheetah had escaped from a nearby sanctuary. It wasn't long before a few employees from the sanctuary arrived and brought the cheetah back to its home. Considering how dangerous these animals can be, the employees from the sanctuary stated that the boy was very lucky that he didn't approach and frighten the animal. This would have to be one of the strangest things ever discovered in a backyard. Mac Reed was digging in his backyard when he found a vault hidden under his hot tub. He wasn't sure what the vault was for, so he contacted a hot tub technician to take a look. When the two men looked inside, they made a shocking discovery. There was a bag in the vault that contained 60 bottles containing marijuana, along with sealed bags filled with other drugs, with an estimated street value of around $175,000. According to Mr. Reed, at first he thought about keeping the drugs and selling them. He thought it would be a great way to recoup the capital that he had put into his online business. He stated that after thinking it over, he decided it would be a bad idea. He then contacted the Los Angeles Police Department to report the find. The dispatcher told him to bring the drugs to the police station because there were no officers available. He decided it would be a bad idea to drive through the city with a trunk filled with drugs, so he asked for a supervisor to come to his home to retrieve the bag. When Sergeant Legaspi arrived at his home, she took the drugs and suggested that he remove the hatch just in case the owner of the drugs came back for it. Mr. Reed stated that he was worried that his children would fall into the open hole, so he came up with another idea. He printed out a message that read, "We found it and called LAPD. They confiscated it and are now watching the place. Sorry." He stuck it on the hatch, hoping that it would protect his family if the owner of the drugs ever returned. Now, before we get to the #1 spot and find out what crazy discovery was found in this Wisconsin backyard, remember to hit that subscribe button and turn on channel notifications. That way you'll be notified of all our freshest content. Close to 10 years after Ken Zwick and Carol Holler-Zwick bought their Wisconsin home, they found and opened a metal door in the ground. The door led to an underground bunker that was built in the 1960s. When they went inside, they found enough food to last a family 2 weeks underground. There was clothing, tools, batteries, flashlights, and medical supplies. When they made the discovery, they reached out to the Neenah Historical Society. The family agreed to donate the contents of the bunker to the Historical Society, who put them on exhibit in a model of the bunker found in the family's backyard.
Well, there's another episode in the can. Thank you so much for watching. Now, just a quick announcement. We've started live streaming a couple of times a week, so keep an eye out in your subscription feed for that. But in the meantime, if you're enjoying our content, leave us a comment down below. We love reading them. And that's it for me. I'll see you all next time.